Hello, and welcome to the GRadulting Workshop Series. At today's workshop, we will address the topic of starting a small business. So my name is Debbie McCutsky, and I am the Coordinator of Services and Programs for Graduate Student Legal Aid. I use she, her pronouns. This workshop is co-sponsored today by Graduate Student Legal Aid and Undergraduate Student Legal Aid. You may not know that legal aid has a variety of services, and you have already paid for them because you paid your student fee. We offer virtual consultations, so our services are very easy to use. We're so accessible now that we're offering things virtually. First of all, we do legal consultations on general matters like you might be having a problem with your landlord. And those are handled by our attorneys. On the undergrad side, we have Cindy Schilling. Hi, Cindy. Thanks for being here today.
Hi.
And on the graduate side, we have Zach Mundy. And Zach might be in the background or he may be joining us later, but they are both terrific resources for students. We also offer legal consultations on immigration matters. So once a month, we have an immigration attorney meet with students. We also provide advocates for students who were charged by the university with a violation of the Code of Conduct or the Code of Academic Integrity. And finally, Cindy and I are both notaries. That is our only in-person service right now. But we will be happy to notarize either your academic or personal documents. Again, free services, no charge. All right, before I introduce our speaker, just a few announcements. Automatic closed captioning has been enabled for those who want to read along. Near the end of the workshop, I'll post a link to a survey. We only ask 4 questions. We want to know if you felt this workshop was useful. Was it helpful? What other ideas do you have about workshops? And finally, I will email links to the survey, the slides, the recording, and anything else that our speaker gives me. And I will share that this afternoon or tomorrow morning with everybody who registered. So the links will also be posted on our website, which is gradlegalaid.umd.edu. So let's get started with the topic of the day, starting a small business. I am pleased to introduce a speaker who is new to the GRadulting Workshop Series. Her name is Alla McCoy. And Alla completed her MBA at the Robert H. Smith School of Business at the University of Maryland. She is now the Director of Startup Support for UM Ventures. And she joined UM Ventures as a technology licensing associate for information services back in 2013. So she's been around a while with us. And prior to being with UM Ventures, she worked at the Digman Center for Entrepreneurship, where she designed and managed experiential learning opportunities for student entrepreneurs. And she also worked with regional entrepreneurs and investors. And in particular, she managed Digman Center's Angel Investor Group. So Alla is an amazing resource. We are so lucky to have her here today. So Alla, welcome. Please take it away.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Debbie, for the introduction and thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this presentation today. I also would like to thank all of the students who joined. I know your time is valuable and I'm very happy to see so many of you here listening. So I designed today's presentation with not just the process of how to start a business, but also with resources that you can use at the University of Maryland. And as you can see on my first slide, there are a lot of resources. So if you're interested in starting a business, big or small, you are in a great place at the University of Maryland. And I'm going to go over a lot of these resources in more detail. All right, so so there's a lot of funding available to qualified startups, and I will mention what qualifications you have, but as you can see, again, you're in a great place to be if you're interested in entrepreneurship. So first, let's talk about the types of startups or businesses that you could start. So there are more, but the main types are high growth startup, lifestyle business, and organically grown company. So high growth startup, it's usually a newly formed company with highly scalable business model, meaning it's very easy to replicate and grow it. And it's usually positioned to acquire a large market share very quickly and grow revenues to about $5 million very quickly, again, depending on the industry. The big differentiator of this is that this company is positioned for either acquisition or IPO. So while you are building it from the very beginning, you know that you're going to sell it within the next 10 years or so. Lifestyle business, and I will talk why. So lifestyle business, it's a company with business model that's usually difficult or not meant to scale quickly. So those are the types of businesses that you keep for life. That's why they're called lifestyle businesses. So they're not meant to be sold early. And some of the examples would be a family-owned restaurant, a spa, photo studio, and also consultant firms. So again, they're called lifestyle businesses because you keep them and you're not trying to sell them soon. Organically grown company, it's a business that finances its growth solely through its own revenues and not taking any outside finances. So it's usually lifestyle businesses or organically grown companies. Sometimes high growth startups can also be like that. An example would be Dyson. So how do you start a business? No matter what type of business you're trying to build, big or small, your step one would be to first do a feasibility analysis to see, is there a potential for a startup? Should I even do this? So you would do things like product market fit analysis. You would go through customer discovery. You would try to figure out what your minimum viable product looks like, and design your business model, and also go to market strategy. Once you analyze all of that, you would have your answer, yay or nay, on your startup. And now we can talk about how do you actually do that. So product market fit, what is it? Product market fit means product or service that satisfies a continuously strong demand in a defined market that you can reach, where customers are willing to pay enough to sustain a profitable and scalable business model, or at least profitable business model. That's where you can talk about, yes, we have product market fit potentially. TAM is a very important concept here. TAM stands for total addressable market. And the word addressable is key here. So it's number of customers who have a need for your specific product or service who you can reasonably market and sell to. So for example, if you're trying to open a yoga studio, your total addressable market would be people who want to take yoga classes, interested in yoga classes, but who also are living within certain driving distance. So that's your addressable market. So not everybody in the United States would be your addressable market, but only people who live maybe within a 5-mile radius. That's your addressable market. And people who have certain income that they can spend on yoga classes, for example. So understanding that is really important. What is your addressable market? Proof of concept, it's the process that proves or disproves product market fit. So for example, if you would like to open a bakery, it would be a good idea to first try to sell your baked goods at a farmer's market before you actually open a bakery, so that you can find out, are people willing to pay enough for your baked goods that would actually justify for you to lease a space, lease a commercial kitchen, and open up a brick and mortar store. And speaking of which, anybody who is interested in trying to see if you have proof of concept for any type of food businesses, University of Maryland's Farmers Market will be opening up soon, and they are looking for vendors, and they're very much welcoming of student entrepreneurs who would like to try out. So please let me know if you would like to get in touch, or just reach out to them yourself. They're very much welcoming of any student entrepreneurs who would like to try their hand at selling their things at the farmers market. When you're doing market research, there's a process that's called customer discovery. So customer discovery, it's a process of creating a hypothesis of who you think your customers are, why do you think they're your customers, what are they willing to pay for, how much are they willing to pay for, how do they go about buying whatever it is that you are trying to sell. And then once you've created that hypothesis, then you would go and test that hypothesis through a series of potential customer interviews. Customer segment is a group of customers who share a defined set of characteristics. And we talked about that a little bit when I was giving you example of total addressable market. So customer segment means customers that share some characteristics such as geographic location, income, education level, could be age, gender, hobby. The more specific you can get in describing your customer segment, the better idea you will have on how to reach those customers and serve them better. And in doing your customer discovery, you would also be designing your business model. Business model means, in general, basically, how does your business plan to create and deliver product or service to customers or users? How do you plan to finance your operations and generate profit, or finance its daily operations if you're building a nonprofit? Very important for nonprofits, for students, especially when you have ideas about building nonprofits, usually how to finance those operations kind of goes to the background, but it's also really, really important to think about. Business Model Canvas is a great tool to create your hypothesis and then very quickly change it if you need to. As you do your customer discovery interviews, you can make changes on this Business Model Canvas real quick and adjust your business model. And there's a great program at the University of Maryland that can teach you how to use Business Model Canvas, and most importantly, how to conduct customer discovery interviews, and most importantly, how to interpret those how to interpret those interviews. How do you interpret the information that you get? So if you go to icore.umd.edu, you can find out more. There is an info session that they're doing every month, so you can understand better how that works. But basically, it's a 2-week program where you would be doing customer discovery interviews. The next cohort is starting at the end of April, and then another one will be done sometime in July. And so this is regional UMD I-Core. There's also national NSF I-Core that comes also with funding. However, for that program, it's much harder to qualify and a lot more difficult to get in. It's easier to get into the University of Maryland I-Core. So if you're interested, I highly encourage that you start your entrepreneurship journey with this program. We also have entrepreneurs in residence, and we're actually in the process of adding 2 more. So these are all experienced startup founders, entrepreneurs who build multiple businesses, had successes, had failures, and are here to share their wisdom with you. So you can schedule a time with them. You can schedule an hour with them. Most of them are doing meetings over Zoom, so it's fairly easy to schedule and go to that appointment. So if you go to this link that's listed here, you can see each of their schedules, and you can see what their qualifications are and what their industry experience is. Of these individuals, Laura Newman is currently running for Maryland governor, so she's off the schedule, EIR schedule for April and May, and we'll see how it goes if how the primaries go. But there will be 2 more women that we are adding to our lineup, so I'm really excited about that. So if you're interested in spending a quality hour with an experienced entrepreneur one-on-one, this is a great opportunity to do so. We also offer Startup Fundamentals Workshop Series. We offer about 2 workshops a week. They're all done over Zoom, just like this one, where we invite professionals to discuss business concepts and skills, legal issues surrounding startups, and many other practical know-hows. We started recording these workshops with COVID and posting them on YouTube. So there's a link to our YouTube channel, or you can look for Startup UMD YouTube channel, and you can find there are a lot of very interesting workshops. And in the coming months, in the month of April, we have a great lineup. We have a workshop on how to start a food-based business, this week we have a workshop on how to use social media in promoting your business, and many workshops on intellectual property. So you can take a look, they're free. You can sign up for them and either attend them live or watch them later. For those of you who are graduate students and you would like to try to commercialize innovation or inventions that you developed at the University of Maryland with your PhD advisor, there is an opportunity to finance, to apply for grant through TEDCO MII program, Maryland Innovation Initiative program. And that grant brings in $115,000 that you could use to finance your graduate student salary, or even your postdoc salary as well for 9 months. And this grant provides money to do technology validation project, and also cover some of the patent expenses and develop commercialization plan. If you'd like to know more, there's a link. Again, this is for graduate students who are interested in commercializing research that you're working on at the university as part of your graduate student work. So once you've completed your step 1 and you decided, okay, it's a go, I think we have something that people are gonna like, and will be willing and happy to pay enough to keep us in business. What's next? So next, you would need to actually form a company. If there is any intellectual property that needs to be licensed into the company, you need to do that before you use it. You need to figure out how you're going to finance your company growth. Are there any regulatory constraints, any regulatory issues that you're going to have to deal with? And then what does your minimum viable product look like? And then how are you going to, and then start developing it, and hopefully also lining up your first customers or users. We have a whole workshop dedicated on corporate structure, what it means, and what type of documents you need to start a business. So there is a recorded workshop on our YouTube channel. It's a lot to cover, so you can watch that, or you can attend one of our upcoming workshops on the same topic. But basically, I know there was a question before the workshop, so I'll cover this really briefly. Basically, these are 4 most common structures. There's a lot more out there, but the 4 most common ones are sole proprietorship. This is where the owner is personally liable, and owner's assets may be used to pay company's debts. Company finances commingle with owner's finances. So whatever money you receive, so if you're a 1-person yoga teacher, whatever money you receive, you put it in your personal bank account, and then you declare that on your personal income tax return. Limited liability corporation is a structure that allows you to separate liability. So owner is not personally liable for debts or any other things, unless of course you sign a personal guarantee. Company finances still flow through owner's personal finances. However, it's the legal liability that's separate. So LLC is usually a good way to start because it removes that liability. Corporation, both liability and personal finances are separate from owners. So when the company grows and you have more investors, usually they will ask you to separate personal finances from company finances for obvious reasons. It becomes too messy. And the issue there, though, is the corporation pays the tax, income tax, and then once you collect that income, you have to pay income tax on that as well. So there's the double taxation issue that comes to play. It's also a little bit more expensive to apply and maintain, but it's necessary when the company becomes bigger. And then there is a nonprofit organization. It's a company that's organized for public or social benefit, subject to non-distribution constraints. So basically, whatever money income comes into that company cannot be distributed to shareholders or owners. The company keeps all of that. And there are other structures, low profit, and some of the others, but that is covered in that recorded workshop that I discussed. And if there's an interest, we can organize another one live. So when you're forming a company, it's important to make sure that if you're using any intellectual property, that it's you have the right to use it. So if you're using any inventions, for example, you can apply for patent protection. It's very expensive and time consuming, but in many businesses it is necessary. In many it is not, so it really depends. Trademark protection as well. If you're using IP that belongs to somebody else, such as university or somebody else, you make sure that you obtain necessary license and license it into your startup. So if you, just a note, University of Maryland name and logo cannot be used without permission and license from University of Maryland Office of Trademarks and Licensing. And if you're a student, they actually have I think it's $100 or something like that you need to pay. So if you want to use Testudo or anything else, you do need to have a license from the university to use that. And before we move on, so we also have a lot of workshops on intellectual property. If you're interested in learning more about any of those, feel free to attend those workshops. We have several coming up soon. And then you need to determine what your funding strategy is. So if you are starting a small lifestyle business, usually you would fund that through personal savings. You can go to SBA. You can obtain an SBA loan, small business. SBA stands for Small Business Administration Loan, or small business grants. at the University of Maryland, we have Small Business Development Center, and they can help you navigate SBA loans, and also if there are any small business grants. Sometimes local governments will have economic development grants. So in Prince George's County, you can reach out to Prince George's County Department of Economic Development to see if they have any economic development grants. Usually those are very specific. So for example, Prince George's County right now is very focused on attracting quantum startups. So there are some for that, but you can always inquire. But basically small lifestyle businesses are usually it's personal savings, maybe loans, maybe some small business grants through your local economic development authority, or there are some nonprofits that may do that as well. If you're building a high growth startup, technology high growth startup, then you would be able to do SBIR and STTR grants through the federal government. Again, some personal savings, friends and family, and then you would move into venture capital and get money from angel investors and VCs. In any case, it's always important to show that you also have put in some of your personal savings or you've exhausted your personal savings as well. And I know for students, that's hard, but showing that you've exhausted what you have is important for any investor coming in. And then, of course, there's organic growth is another funding strategy. So you start out with personal savings and grants, but then any future growth is financed through any revenues. So for example, you can start selling your baked goods at farmers markets, save any revenues that you earn through that, and then if you need to, then you can build a brick and mortar store, or you can rent a larger commercial kitchen, build any type of infrastructure that you need, but any kind of growth you would do solely through revenues. All of these terms are for high growth startups. So I'll go through them real quick just so you have an understanding. So VC, or venture capitalist, it's a person investing in high growth startups only on behalf of an investment fund. They invest somebody else's money in hope your company will be sold sometime in the next few years and they will be able to make their money back. Angel investor is a person, again, investing in high growth startup, their own personal money in hopes of high return. So the difference between angel investors and venture capitalists is that angel investors invest their own money, and that's why they usually invest earlier, at earlier stage. They invest less amount, because they invest in their own money. And VCs invest somebody else's money. Now, both angels and VCs are putting money, cash, into the company in exchange for equity, which stands shares of a company. So they basically buy shares of a company, hoping that 5 years down the road, those shares will become 10x, 15x, and that's how they make their money back. There are many investment stages that you might have heard: seed, Series A, B, and so on and so forth. And then there's dilutive funding and non-dilutive funding. So dilutive funding, so any type of equity investment is dilutive funding because it dilutes your or anybody else's equity in the company because they take equity or shares. Non-dilutive funding, it's usually does not require equity in return. It's usually grants, loans, and such. Valuation means what's your company worth. So for example, if an investor puts in $1 million in your company for 25% equity, it means they just said that your company is worth $4 million. That's called valuation. Convertible debt note and safe note are also types of financing mechanism. that are usually used very early in the life of a startup when it's really hard to figure out what that valuation is. So since you're students, please take advantage of student pitch competitions. There are two great ones at the University of Maryland. So Pitch Stingman Competition and Do Good Challenge. All of them, so both of them start early in the year, and now you will have an opportunity to attend finals. I highly recommend that you do, and you can see what type of businesses and startups are actually make it to the final. You can see what information they pitch and what kind of questions they get from the judges, and what type of answers they give. So these events are usually very informative, and then next year you can start your process early, working your way through both of these programs to see if you can make it to the finals next year and earn some money. It's a great way to get some non-dilutive funding into your companies. Many other universities have pitch competitions, so if you're interested, you can take a look and see what local pitch competitions there are for students, and there are a lot of national ones. Of course, it takes time and dedication. We have entrepreneurs in residence so our entrepreneurs in residence can coach you and help you develop a good pitch. So if you're interested in that, it's definitely available to you. So to students who are building startups around technologies developed at the University of Maryland, there's also TEDCO MII Phase 2 grant. It's $150,000 that goes to the company, but again, it has to be University of Maryland IP-based startup. Now, of course, you have your company. You need to have a space to run the company out of. So Startup Shell, those of you who have heard of it, it's a fantastic student-run organization, and it's a great student entrepreneur community. They have a lot more than space, but space is something that they also offer. But it's also a great community. They have talks, they have events, so I highly recommend that you take a look. It's members-based. You have to apply to be a member in the Startup Shell. And they just moved into the Idea Factory, that new shiny building on campus. They're great students, so if you're interested, take a look for next year. MTech Venture, it's a startup incubator here on campus. It's in the Rabin building and TVB, a little bit off campus. So they have dedicated space for startups. So if you're working with a faculty advisor on developing some sort of invention, you can't run your startup out of that same lab, because that's university space and university equipment, and your startup needs something separate from that. And there's a process called, so startup companies who want to be located on campus at MTech Ventures or any other university facility, there's a process called facility use application, and you can take a look there. We also have a lot of startup spaces in the Discovery District. So you probably noticed across the Baltimore-Washington Avenue, there's the hotel, there's WeWork, there are other spaces. So if you're interested in located in that Discovery District area, Sammy Poppet, who some of you may have met, it's a great contact to get a space there. So now what's next? Step 3 is really accelerating your startup. The focus is on building your management team, have active fundraising efforts depending on what type of business you're building, deploying your first version of your product, and really focusing on customer acquisition and hopefully collecting your early revenues. At that point, you can also consider applying to Maryland Momentum Fund. So Maryland Momentum Fund, it's a University System of Maryland fund. They make equity investments up to $500,000 in high growth startups. you have to be a University System of Maryland student, alum, faculty, or IP-based startup, and you have to have matching investment. There's also a great R&D program for companies where the company puts in $10,000 and university puts in $90,000, and a lab at the University of Maryland can do an R&D project. It's a great R&D financing mechanism. And then, of course, your goal is to get to the self-sustaining startup or company. This is where you are focusing on having enough financing to go to market, active customers and users, growing your market share, growing your revenue, and hopefully making it to actual profitability. And I just wanted to show you some success stories where students were able to work and develop in this case, these were high growth, high tech startups. So this is Medcura. A PhD student was working with, Matt Dowland was working with his PhD advisor, Professor Srini Raghavan. And Matt Dowland is the student, and he actually took the lead on the startup creation, and he became the first CEO of the company. Now that he is the CTO, but they have a FDA cleared product. This is OTC. You can actually buy it at a CVS pharmacy, or you can buy it on Amazon, and they have several products that they're developing for hospitals. This is another one. Another example where a master's student took the lead on developing drone technology, and now they have several drone products that they're selling to DoD. Here are some other success stories. So Grip Boost was actually developed by, the idea came to a University of Maryland football player, Matt Furstenberg. He was playing football and realized that the football gloves lose their grip after just one game. And he had an idea, what if we had a gel that could restore the grip without having to buy a completely new pair of gloves? And so he partnered again with Professor Srini Raghavan, who also put his student team to work on developing that. And so it's, again, now they have Grip Boost is a actual company. They're selling not just the gel, but they're also selling gloves. They have a whole product lineup that you can check out. Again, student-led company. MF Fire was developed from the undergraduate student course, capstone course, where two students came up with the idea with an invention to develop clean burning fireplace. You can buy them on our website. So again, these are two undergraduate students who built that. And Hazel Analytics is another success story, although the student part here comes from UCLA, and he worked with our researchers to develop a way to normalize health report for restaurants. And so they started out as providing this service to restaurants, and mostly restaurant chains. However, as of yesterday, you can actually go on Yelp, and each restaurant will also have a health score there, powered by Hazel Analytics. So again, it's another great success story led by a student. I know I threw a lot of information at you. I talked a lot. We do have online resources available. So there's a startup guide, innovation gateway. If you didn't know, we also have a lot of market research databases available through the University of Maryland libraries. And YouTube channel is at this link. It's called Startup UMD, so you can go and check the past workshops that might be of interest. And so what to do next? If you are interested in exploring the startup journey, so first I would highly recommend that you sign up for the next UMD I-Core to do your customer discovery. Sign up to meet with entrepreneur in residence. And actually, I should have updated the link there. It should say EIR 2022, but the link on the earlier slide is correct, and I'll correct it before we circulate it. So entrepreneurs in residence available at any time, and also workshops. Some of the upcoming workshops, as I mentioned, we have a great panel talking about how to start a food-based business. So if you're interested in starting a restaurant, a food cart, a food truck, I highly recommend that you attend that workshop. And if you want to watch past workshops on YouTube, they're available and they're free. So I think that's the end of my presentation. I hope we still have, we still have time for questions. And I can stop sharing my screen. So maybe if you are interested, please feel free to unmute yourself, ask your question. So let me see, we do have, so the question here is, could you comment on restriction for international students planning to start up? So that would be a question for an attorney. I think that's Debbie and Cindy are probably better equipped. I will say that there are no necessarily big problems here. I have seen international students launch startups, so that's not an issue. You do have to go through legal process, and Debbie and Cindy are better equipped to answer that question.
I don't know that we're better equipped, but we can hook up people with our immigration attorney. As Debbie said at the beginning of the presentation, we have someone who comes in once a month. And so if that is an issue that you want to discuss or explore, you can email either of our offices. Undergrads would email me, and graduate students would email Debbie, and I'll put those email addresses in the chat. And we can get you together with our immigration attorney to answer any questions that you have.
Yeah, but that should not be a hindrance to what you're trying to do, because usually a company is able to sponsor work visas and such. So there is a way to work around it. I'm not an attorney, so. Let's see.
Any other questions? You post your questions in the chat, direct them to everyone, or you can raise your hand or unmute.
I also wanted to mention that when I send information to Debbie with my PowerPoint, I'll send links to very specific workshops that you could watch. We have one workshop specifically on quick scaling a product-based business. Basically, how do you start a product-based business in a week with maybe $1,000 or so? And our entrepreneur, Harry Geller, talks through how to use a lot of the online resources to do that, to be able to do that quickly. With internet democratized entrepreneurship and startups, so it becomes much easier. So I'll share a link to that specific workshop.
Great, thank you.
Hi, this is Jonathan Dixon. Thank you guys for putting on this workshop. I think this is fantastic and really extremely valuable for all of us who want to start businesses. One of the questions I have, I'm considering starting a business, but partnership or finding somebody I can work with is one of the harder things to do. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, do you guys have resources for those who, like I'm just a recent grad MBA student, mm-hmm. and I am really good with the business side of things, but I'm not as technical. So how would I go about finding like a technical partner or someone who can actually help build out like the idea that I have?
It's a very good question because usually we're dealing with the other problem, finding the business partners for business savvy individuals for the faculty or for scientific students to partner with. So you could send me an email and let me know what you're looking for, and I'll be happy to maybe make some introductions. We also have, you can also attend events. So for example, there's Invention of the Year coming up where you will be able to meet scientific scientists that will be honored for best inventions at the University of Maryland. We also do CEO Mixer where we invite faculty and scientific students to meet with potential business partners. That's another good way to meet them. But networking is probably your best bet, I would say.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, reach out to me and we can figure out if we can partner you with somebody. I'll post
Great.
my email address.
Thank you, Alla. Hey, there's a question in the chat. So there's someone that says that they have products, including wooden products, necklaces, and earrings, but right now only advertising on Facebook. Do you have any suggestions or a website to guide with basic information?
Yeah, so I highly recommend that you watch that Quick Scale in Your Business workshop. It has a lot of a chock full of resources talking about how to do that and how to, different platforms that you can utilize and different tools. And after you watch that workshop, you can also schedule a follow-up meeting with Harry Geller, who is a very experienced product-based entrepreneur, so he can guide you with that.
And what is the name of that workshop again?
It's called Quick Scaling Your Way to Entrepreneurship. Maybe I can find it right now and post a link to it now. Or I'll provide it to you in the email.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you for the question. Anything else? Anyone? It's awfully quiet. I know we have a lot of entrepreneurs today with questions.
Are you guys mostly interested in small businesses, technology-based businesses? And by the way, Dingman Center and Do Good, I think I mentioned it, are great student resources for anybody interested in building any type of business.
Are those are they virtual or are they in person, those competitions?
So this year they're actually doing them in person. So the two events, the finals are going to be in person, so you can come and see. They did them virtual last year. It's just really difficult to do it virtually.
Yeah, it's good. It's fun to watch.
Yes. Absolutely.
All right.
Yep.
Anything else? All right. We all have Alla's contact information, so y'all can reach out to her. And if you have any legal issues outside of starting a business, because that's not something that the legal aid offices do, we turn that over to all of these resources that Alla talked about. So, wow, that was a great workshop. I wish I had a business to start because there is so much support here at the university. So you are just a gem. Thank you so much, Alla, for your time, for laying this out in a way that it was easy to kind of understand. These slides are really valuable, and it sounds like a lot of our students will be reviewing them to find out where they can get support for their great idea. So thank you so much for being here today and joining our workshop series.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Alla. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
So everyone, please take a minute or even less than a minute to fill out your workshop survey. And I will also in the post-workshop email, share a link so you can register for our last workshop of the semester, which is on the topic of negotiating your salary. So
Oh,
that is one you
important.
don't want to miss. So
That's
everyone have a great week and let us know at Legal Aid how we can help you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.